Most people cannot define DIO, DSO, and DPO in one sentence. And in today's video, we'll be looking at the three formulas and the formula that also ties them together. And a real example where a company's cash conversion cycle exploded from 33 days to 122 days. Welcome to Toyosi's Finance, where we break down money, business, and strategy in simpler terms. First, we have DSO, which is Day Sales Outstanding, and it's the amount of days that it takes you to collect cash after you invoice. The formula is accounts receivables divided by revenue times 365. So if your DSO is 60 days, that means it takes you 60 days to collect cash after you make a sale. And a higher DSO means that more cash is actually trapped in your customers' pockets. Then we have DPO, which is days payable outstanding. It's the number of days it actually takes you to pay your suppliers. The formula is accounts payable divided by cost of goods sold times 365. So if your DPO is actually 45 days, that means that it takes you up to 6 weeks before you pay your suppliers. And a higher DPO actually means that cash is free, so your suppliers are financing you up to a point. While DIO is days inventory outstanding, it's the number of days that your inventory sits before it's sold. The formula is inventory divided by cost of goods sold times 365. And a higher DIO actually means that more cash is tied up in warehouses. Now let's look at the formula that ties them all together, the cash conversion cycle. CCC equals DSO plus DIO minus DPO. It's basically the number of days between when you pay your suppliers and when you collect cash from your customers. And a positive CCC means that you're funding the business and cash is trapped, while negative CCC means that your suppliers are funding your business and cash is free. Here's what it looks like in real businesses. Amazon CCC is actually negative. They collect cash immediately order ships, but they pay their suppliers 60 to 90 days after. Apple is similar, its CCC is negative 70 days. The iPhone supply chain is effectively financed by its suppliers and not Apple's balance sheet. And the CCC's benchmark actually depends on different industries. For a traditional retailer, it could be about 30 to 60 days, while for a mid-market manufacturing company, it could go up to about 60 to 90 days. And for luxury goods, it could be over 200 days because inventory actually sits in the boutique for about 6 to 12 months. CCC doesn't just tell you where cash is trapped, it also tells you who funds your growth, and that's the real insight. Let me show you what a cash conversion cycle deterioration could look like using the same example that I used in my last video, BrightHome Furniture. So this year, BrightHome Furniture has 15 million in revenue at 8 million of cost of goods sold. Last year, it had 1.4 million of account receivables and 11.5 million of revenue. That is 45 days of DSO, and it has inventory of 800k on 6.3 million of cost of goods sold, which amounts to 46 days of DIO. And for the DPO, it has 1 million of account receivables on 6.3 million of cost of goods sold, and that amounts to 58 days of DPO. So the CCC is 45 plus 46 minus 58 days, which amounts to 33 days. While this year we have 1.7 million of account receivables on 15 million of revenue, which amounts to 90 days of DSO, and inventory also dropped to 1.4 million on 8 million of cost of goods sold, and that amounts to 64 days of DIO, while accounts payable dropped to 700k on 8 million of cost of goods sold, which is 32 days of DPO. So the CCC is 90 plus 64 minus 32, which amounts to 122 days, which amounts to 89 extra days of working capital drag. And on 15 million of revenue, it's about 3.7 million of extra cash that is trapped in the business. So you might be wondering why this happened. Three decisions, each rational in isolation. First is the fact that they moved to larger retailers, so their DSO moved from 45 days to 90 days. And secondly, they built their inventory ahead of the Christmas peak. And thirdly was the fact that they paid their suppliers earlier to be able to get a 1% discount, which meant they were giving up 26 days of financing in order to be able to save 1%. Each decision looked smart on its own, but together they actually turned a profitable growth year into a cash crisis. Now, what's a good CCC actually depends on your industry, but let's look at benchmarks. For a SaaS company, DSO is 30 to 45 days and there's no inventory, so DIO is 0, while DPO is about 15 to 30 days, so CCC should be under 20 days, and that is very cash efficient. While for mid-market manufacturing, DSO is about 30 to 45 days, DIO should be about 45 to 75 days, while DPO should be about 45 to 60 days, which leaves the CCC at about 30 to 75 days. While for large retailers, for example Amazon, Walmart, Costco, the DSO is actually under 10 days because customers pay on the spot, while the DPO is about 60 to 90 days, while DIO is about 35 to 60 days, and it's why the CCC is often negative, and this is why such businesses actually scale without having to raise capital. For luxury goods, however, the DSO is about 30 to 45 days, while the DIO, however, could go up to more than 180 days because luxury goods sit in the boutiques for about 3 to 6 months. The DPO is usually plus 60 days, and the CCC is usually high, but is funded by gross margin that's over 75%. So the role is to know the benchmark for your industry and never compare across unrelated verticals. Now let's get to the part where we learn how to move each number. The first is the DSO, which is the fastest level that you can move, and we have 5 ways you can do this. First is prompt payment discount, 1% discount if you pay within 10 days. Some customers will actually take it. Second is automated dunning. Most ERPs can actually send automated reminders, so you should turn it on. Third is direct debit. If your customers are willing, this actually turns DSO to 0. Fourth is factoring. Sell your large receivables to a bank at a discount. It's instant cash, but it's expensive. Fifth is milestone invoicing. Instead of invoicing at the end of the project, you should invoice at kickoff, at signing, and not just at the end of the project. For DPO is a medium speed lever, but let's look at 4 ways you can actually move the number. The first is just in time ordering. 2. SKU rationalization. The Pareto rule actually almost works because 20% of your product actually generates about 80% of your revenue to cut the tail. Third is consignment inventory, where your supplier actually owns the product until you sell it. Fourth is better demand forecasting with seasonality built in. While for DPO, it's actually the slowest level to move, but it has the most free money, and there are 3 tactics. First, negotiate 60 to 90 days with key suppliers. If you're a meaningful customer, they'll take it. Second is supplier financing. Your bank pays the supplier now and you pay the bank later. 3. You don't pay early unless the discount actually beats your weighted average cost of capital. A 2% discount is worth 36% annualized. You should take it. A half percent discount for paying 10 days is worth 18% annualized. Maybe take it. For a quarter% discount, you should skip it. So the rule of thumb is 1% discount for paying 10 days earlier. It's worth roughly 12% annualized financing cost. So if it's higher than your weighted average cost of capital, take it. If not, skip it. Finally, the thing that holds it all together. You should have a weekly dashboard that actually shows your working capital. 3 sections. The first section should actually show your DSO, DIO, DPO, and CCC with a trend of this week versus last week versus target. So 4 numbers easy to read. While the middle section should actually show your aging, your AP aging, AR aging, inventory aging from 0 to 30 days, 30 to 60 days, 60 to 90, and 90 days plus. 9 times out of 10, 90% of AR overdue is actually concentrated in 5% of your customers. And the bottom section is cash trap versus targets, one number that can actually translate the amount of euros that you could actually generate by hitting your targets. And here's a motivating math. Every 5 days of DSO that's actually saved on 15 million of revenue is equals 200k of free cash. So now for a quick recap, DSO is actually AR divided by revenue times 365, which is how fast you collect, while DPO is AP divided by COGS times 365, which is how fast you pay. Then DIO is inventory over COGS times 365, which is how fast you sell. And then CCC is basically DSO plus DIO minus DPO, which is the days between paying and collecting. And for big retailers like Amazon, the CCC is negative, while for traditional manufacturing, it's about 100 plus, and you should benchmark within your industry and not across verticals. And there are different ways to actually improve the numbers as discussed earlier. So thank you for watching this video. If you found it useful, give it a thumbs up and also follow our Toyosi's Finance. Goodbye.